Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Silicon Valley Entrepreneur. I'm Dave Cokerhook, filling in tonight for Chris Gill, who is the CEO and President of Silicon Valley Association of Startup Entrepreneurs. Really appreciate your being there to visit with us tonight. And I'd like to introduce our guest, Dave Epstein. Dave, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Hi, Dave.
So, Dave, you have your own consulting organization right now, and you're helping entrepreneurs and VC, venture capitalists, kind of like find fits and things like that. So
yeah.
We're here to talk tonight about that sort of thing. So tell us a little bit about your background, and then we'll dive into some things that I think will be useful to our viewing audience.
Sure. Well, I'm an engineer by training, so I actually got the Geek Award very early on in my career. I got a bachelor's and master's in electrical engineering, and then I did a couple of small companies where I was engineering manager and a VP of engineering at a startup company, and I did an MBA at Boston University in the evenings.
Right.
So I kind of moved myself a little bit more toward management, and I have a number of companies that went public that I had been in, and a number of companies that went bust that I had been in, and been in the venture community side, the venture capital side, as a venture capitalist for many years, and now advise startup companies and
you're
other
teaching
VCs.
Was it University of San Francisco?
I do teach at University of San Francisco. I teach entrepreneurship, and I help teach in an MBA program, and I'm also teaching undergraduates now.
Fantastic.
On entrepreneurship.
Well, I think that's very helpful for the folks who are watching the show to get that kind of a perspective, because you've got a very broad spectrum background. You've been in companies as just an employee, as an owner. You've been in the venture capital side. You're an educator, so you've been able to look at this whole area of entrepreneurship from many different perspectives. And I think that's fantastic, because that's one of the things that I believe gives you a tremendous amount of data that you're going to be able to help me and our viewers with today. So thank you for that.
Yeah, it is. We were talking before, and it is helpful. As an entrepreneur, you kind of sometimes look at venture capitalists as the dark side.
Right.
And, so then when you join the dark side, you no longer want to look at it like the dark side. But yes, it is helpful to kind of see that what the motivations are of each of the different entities and how they fit together.
Right, fantastic. Well, I got a couple things I was hopeful that we could talk about today that I think might shed some light on this subject for the viewing audience. One of which is when we look at where we are today as far as the economy goes. I mean, the conventional wisdom is pretty much like, gee, things aren't going really well. This is not a good time to be even considering starting a business. Is that a valid thought, or can you give a little of your perspective on that?
Yeah, no, there's no bad time to start a company. I think that, in fact, even in any economy like this one, where money is harder to come by, you keep hearing about people who aren't employed, or people are worried about not having a job and such, I find that the amount of innovation is the same as in the boom times.
Right.
Everybody still has great ideas, great thoughts, and actually I talk about macro conditions always provide opportunities. And macro conditions can be either negative or positive, but they still provide opportunities.
And I guess sometimes you can be sort of thrust into greatness whether you wanted to or not, because if you have a skill set or you have a brilliant idea and you're working for XYZ company and that position goes away, you may have an opportunity to do something now that you may never have taken advantage of before.
Absolutely. Yeah, it sometimes forces you into a situation where you got to think about what you're going to do next.
Right.
It's also in a time like this, when there are more people who are not working, sometimes they're very good people that are not working many times, and so you actually have the opportunity to hire people who you might not have been able to hire.
That's a good point,
in bigger companies that are laying off people, sometimes those that are very good know they can get a job somewhere else, but it's not as fun, and so maybe they might start or join a startup company.
There you go.
So it's actually a great time to start a company, because you have less competition, you have more availability of people, you are coming out when you do produce the product, there will be less competition at that time because
Right.
there's fewer companies starting up. So, of course, it's harder to get money.
Well, now that's the next thing. I was just going to ask you about that. In these kinds of times and conditions, where do you look for funds to start up a business like this?
Well, startups have all different ways of funding themselves, and you have to understand what kind of business you're starting, because sometimes it just takes your own money to start it. And for generally smaller businesses, sometimes you and what we call friends and family money,
Right.
Sometimes called friends, family, and fools money. But again, it's money that you can just round up to get something smaller started, or getting a sole proprietorship or something like that effect. There's bank loans that you can get.
Small Business Administration is very active right now in looking to be able to provide some kind of base funding for companies.
Very good. The government is certainly actually getting more active in trying to generate more jobs, and the SBA is trying to give out money, so there's that. And of course then there's angel money, and that gets a little bit more formalized, and seed money that maybe even is more formalized, and then venture capital, which would be the most formal, or institutional money, in which you're starting bigger companies. All of that is available even today. There are still a lot of very rich people around. There's still a lot of money that's inside venture capital. It may be getting smaller, and it may be getting harder to get them to give it to you, but it is there. And so all the avenues are open. It just takes a little bit more kind of drive, maybe, and commitment to get there.
When you look at these different avenues, though, one of the things that pops into mind to me is that each one has a certain criteria, I guess you'd say, that you have to be able to meet in order to qualify for it. If you're going to get VC money, you have to have a decent product or service. It needs to be, something that the VCs see is a growth potential, etc. If you're going to go and try to get conventional money from a bank, you need to have certain profitability scenarios, or at least a business plan that makes sense, etc. And then there's the ownership thing to consider, whether you're going to have to give up some equity and things like that. So when an entrepreneur is looking at his options, what do you suggest that he or she do to try to figure out which avenue might be the appropriate one for them to consider going down?
Yeah. Well, the entrepreneur first has to understand what they want to create, what kind of company they want to create, how big is it, what kind of role do they want to play, how much ownership are they willing to give away, and there's trade-offs on each one of these. If you are really a cowboy and want to do it all on your own and want to start your own and build your own company, don't look for professional money, because in that case you're going to want to keep control. And there's nothing wrong with that. All the more power to you. There are many companies that have been started that way, and on their own, and successful ones. If you find that that's not really your calling, maybe you're a technologist who's coming up with a complex technical design of something, a chip or something that might take a lot of money to build, well, you probably should understand your own motivation of that. If you want to get that into the market, maybe you need a whole team of people. You need a professional CEO, you need a professional VP of marketing and VP of business and VP of operations, and that starts to look much more like a professional investment for venture capital. So you have to really understand, are you building a lifestyle business, in which case maybe it's a store, or maybe it's an online program where you just just getting a little bit of money gets you a long way, or are you going to try to build a Fortune 500 public company?
Got it.
And that you need.
So that's a key thing then, making sure that you as the entrepreneur understand what it is you are looking to accomplish. And I think a lot of people, when they first consider getting into business, maybe don't think in detail about that. I mean, it's off the cuff, like, hey, let's go out and start a company or whatever.
Yeah.
So, well, let's take that a little bit deeper. Maybe you're sitting there and you're figuring what you might want to accomplish out of it, but how crucial is the business plan, that whole planning component, to be able to, A, find funding, B, find people who might want to come and collaborate with you and find some level of success, C?
Yeah. So, of course, I'm a little bit biased. I teach entrepreneurship and business plan development, so certainly all my students are going to want to know that what they're doing is useful.
Oh, so I threw you a softball there.
There you go.
Okay.
But but honestly, I teach what I believe, and that is that a business plan is an important piece of any business. Whether you're starting a small business or you're starting a big business, whether you're starting at a small store or a restaurant, or even if you're starting a department inside maybe a new P&L inside a big company, or you're starting a business that you're going to bring to venture capitalists to look at. Doing the business plan is a necessity. Whether it takes the form of a written document is not as important as what goes into it. Doing the marketing research, doing the competitive research, understanding what we call the value proposition of what you're doing, understanding what the costs are and how many people it's going to take and what kind of funding you need and what kind of organization you need. So all the things that are a natural part of a business plan. If you go to any business planning software or buy a book on it, it gives you a roadmap of what you have to think about to start a company.
But the key is doing it, right?
Yeah.
Because it's so easy to skip over some of those things. I've had some experience in working with some folks who are trying to start a business, and it can be pretty easy to fool yourself in terms of, oh, the market is humongous, or that it's the product is going to be this and that sort of thing. But that discipline of making sure you're doing the full analysis and being willing to have the information come back to tell you that this is not such a good idea, that's hard.
There you go. Doing the homework and being critical of your own work and understanding that you really have to believe in the data that you're looking at.
Right.
And just saying that the market's infinite is, that's a key word for any venture capitalist to say this person hasn't done any of their work. There's no infinite market.
Right.
To say I have no competition, well, if you truly have no competition, then you have no product.
That's
because
right.
Nobody's
going to want it. Yeah.
You're not solving any problem, right? So you have to be critical of your own work, but the best thing is also to get friends or partners or a team together that you can play off against each other. And you have to, I tell people that they really have to believe in their plan too. If I ask a question, you can't come back and say, well, I believe it's this, or, the market clearly is this big, or whatever. You have to have the data behind it. Why do you believe that? What is it that you can point to? What information can you cite that is going to say, yes, that's how big the market is. That's how many people will buy it. That's how much they would pay for it. That's how expensive it's going to be for me to make it. And it's so easy for your first thoughts to be, I know all that stuff, or it's big enough for me I don't have to worry about that.
You think you may have an idea of what it is, but a lot of people who are getting it to that level, who are starting a company, will have a level of expertise in some arena that has caused them to think, I can go out and I can start a business about this. So maybe they're a technician, or maybe they're a marketing guy, or maybe whatever, okay? But if they've not done that due diligence, how do you know where to go? How do they come? Where's the place for them to go to try to get the guidance that they need to drill down as far as they need to drill down?
Right. Well, some of it is not rocket science. Some of it is we have the web at our fingertips now. So it's a lot easier to kind of get a lot of that data than it has been in the past, where you had to go to the library and, kind of look in the business books and look at annual reports and such. Today you have the web. So you start by finding, the information about the market. First you can look for demographics, who you're selling to. You can look for other products that people may be using that are akin to what you're, either directly competitive or something that looks kind of like it, or a business that's similar, and you can get maybe marketing reports from friendly venture capitalists or friendly even competitors. People that you just get to know and take them out to lunch and just find out what you can pick their brains about. So it's all about doing the work on the web and also doing the work in your network and continuing to you find somebody who knows something about it, and you ask them who else they know about it.
Got it.
And then you just do that networking until you get to the people that you want to know, and maybe people are going to help you, which is extremely important.
Yes, indeed. Well, that actually takes us to another subject here, and that is this idea of team building. I think one of the things that a lot of people make a mistake regarding is they think that they need to be the expert in all of the areas if they're going to successfully create a business.
Yeah.
And one, that's real hard to do. And secondly, things change so much in different areas, technologically or marketing-wise or whatever it happens to be, that to be the expert in all of them, that's a lifetime endeavor, and you're never going to, the probability of you achieving it anyway is very limited.
There you go.
So what do you suggest for people, really?
Well, it almost circles back to the first thing that we said is, what are you in this for as an entrepreneur? But in order to really understand and answer that, you have to also ask yourself, what are you good at? So me as an entrepreneur, what am I really good at? What's my background? What can I lean on? Not just what I think I can do, but what have I done? What really comes naturally to me? And not to get wedded to, gee, I'm going to be the CEO, CTO, and chairman of the board of my company, which is going to be a $500 million company and going to be listed on the stock exchange, when all I've ever done is designed some pretty impressive chips for a big company. You know, you just don't have the background or to be able to do that. And in fact, you probably don't have the interest of being a public CEO,
Sure.
which is not at all connected to technology in most cases. So, so understanding what you do best, and then finding those people that you've crossed paths with in the past that really do the other jobs very well. Somebody that you really like, and if you're a technologist, who do you know that you really liked in marketing or sales? Who do you know that you really liked in finance? You really need somebody in finance. Get to know a lawyer. Lawyers are great partners for you. Figure out, what kinds of parts of the business are you going to have to put together in order to build a business that you want.
Right.
And find somebody to challenge you on your technology if you're a technologist.
Sure.
Because we have a saying in venture capital that A, hire A people, and B, hire C people.
Got it,
right?
yeah.
So the best people only get people who are as good as them or better than them.
Right.
And people who aren't quite that good look for people that are not quite as good as them.
So that they can feel like they're actually, in good shape. But I think one of the things that's important about that too, and at least this is my perspective on it, it makes all the sense in the world to bring in those key people who really know that area. But if it's your company, there's a difference between abdicating responsibility for all the areas and knowing enough about them so that the key people that you put in, you know that you can rely on, but you can't afford to, this is a double negative, but you can't afford to not know enough to be able to check on that stuff. Is that a fair statement?
It's complex. It's not so simple, because you may know everything there is to know about microwave technology for fiber optics, but would I expect you to know how to do a balance sheet and a income statement? And would I expect you to know how to draw up a partnership with some large corporation like Broadcom,
Sure.
and put you into that situation where you're negotiating that?
Probably not.
Probably not. So I'm not sure that you
But should
need
you know
to be.
how to read a P&L? Should you be able to know what the balance sheet means?
Yes, you should. But if you bring in somebody who knows how to do that, and
Right.
they talk you through it, and you learn,
That's the key.
that's the right way to do it.
Relying
and you
on your
trust
professionals.
them.
Right.
Because you've known them, you've seen them, you've done your due diligence on it, you've seen the background, you've asked other people what they think, that you trust them, because they have to trust you that you know what you're doing in microwave technology, right?
So I think that's a very keen way of describing this, because a lot of times people will get into this confusion that they really need to know it all. Okay.
Yes.
And there is something to be said for having familiarity with an area, but you're not going to be an expert in everything. And you do have to. One of the hardest things I've ever seen for a lot of entrepreneurs is trusting someone else and letting go.
Oh, that's
you
for
know,
sure.
if they can let go of an area and allow the professional that they brought on board to actually create with it, then a lot better things can happen. But that's hard for people to do sometimes.
Yeah. Well, that's the difference between building something big or building something smaller. If it's something that you can control and you can have, you know, all the expertise that you need to run it, that's going to be a smaller firm. There's no way for you to be able. You can't run General Motors with one person.
Right.
It just doesn't work. And so there's always going to be a limit to how big you can run any organization. If you want to run a small organization and let's say $1 million or $2 million in sales a year, and you can probably control that. You know? But that's probably as big as it's going to get. If you start adding some other people and trusting them to build it out and giving up some of that, then you can grow to the next level.
Right. And I think it's important for the people who may be watching the show to recognize that if they only want to build a business to that $1 or $2 or $3 million level, that's okay.
It is. It is okay. You know, there's nothing wrong with running a successful business. It can be very profitable. You can make a lot of money at it.
Yeah.
There's no shame in that.
Right.
You know, but
let's talk about another thing that I think people get. I don't know if it's confused on, but you tripped up with, and that is, you set up your plan. You've got to know what you're going to go and do, and you go out and you start to act on your plan, and it doesn't go like you figured, and all of a sudden you're, you know, stubbing your toe here and there. What happens? I mean,
yeah, you know, this is a big difference in Silicon Valley versus many parts of the world. Here, we understand that people are going to make mistakes. People are human, they make mistakes. And people learn from mistakes. And people learn from others' mistakes. And, you know, I look at the way that you can tell that people have been through situations that they're going to run into in every business. Every business is going to run into problems.
Yes.
So some of them will fail. But that doesn't mean that you as a person have failed. You have gotten yourself in a situation for whatever reason, maybe a market, maybe you had the wrong technology, maybe a recession came when you weren't were surprised at it, maybe there's another competitor that came in and just ate your lunch. Whatever it is, you'll learn something about, you know, I'm not going to do that again. I now know where I was blind, and I can fix that. Silicon Valley actually tolerates that, in fact celebrates that. That if you bring in experienced people, whether or not the actual entity failed or succeeded, the experience is something that you can't get elsewhere.
And I think that's a real key point, because we oftentimes will learn more from our errors than we will from our successes, because it just opens up the vista to what, you know, where were my weaknesses, or what was going on, and then you can, if you're smart, you won't make the same mistake again.
You know, I'm a private pilot, and this is one of the things the FAA does very well, and it's a unique thing, and that is that we go to safety seminars once in a while. Not required, but pilots like to go to those things, and we study crashes, and we study study mistakes, and we go deeper than just it was a crash because they ran into bad weather or they ran into a mountainside. We try to figure out why they did that. And we talk about what was the mindset, what was the psyche, what was the condition, what was the situation, and we learn from others' mistakes.
Which is a great thing for a business person to do, because you know, it's not like someone else hasn't started a business before. Or that they haven't run into the similar kinds of problems. It may not be the same problem, but there's similarities in these sorts of things. And when you go across industry groups too, there's enough commonality that you can learn something from someone else in a completely different industry that had a similar kind of an issue that you could find to be, you know, just a tremendous help for you.
Yeah, for better or for worse, we have a lot of examples of companies that have failed.
Right.
And I usually recommend to entrepreneurs to go look at companies that are in the business that you're going into or similar businesses and find out why they failed. Find out what it was that they did that was wrong. And sometimes you find out that it's a marketing issue. Sometimes you find that it is a market or an environmental issue. Sometimes you find out they hired the wrong people, or money ran out, or they raised too much money instead of too little.
Right.
You know, I think of Webvan, which was a great idea. It raised hundreds of millions of dollars, and it had too much money. And what happened there was that it built out a national organization for no customers.
There you go.
But it's actually a pretty good business plan, and there are many successful web delivery
that are now thriving.
That are thriving.
I've got one last question for you, Dave, because we're coming to the end of the show. If you could give our viewers an idea, if they're going to go out and start a business, or what would be the 3 most significant things you would suggest that they put attention on? I mean, what would be the top 3 keys?
Okay, we kind of touched on them here. I would say your first one is do your homework. You know, do the plan, understand where this company is going to go, understand what roles there have to be, understand everything about the business, test it, and make sure that you're not just believing things that aren't checked out.
Cool.
So do your
homework. Number 1. Number 2.
Team. Go find the team. And the team is not just you and your pals who are doing the technology or the business side of things. Make sure that you fill out a team in the rest of the people that you need to put together for the business side, the financial side, the legal side, and even your funders are part of your team. Don't just find what we call dumb money.
Got it.
Find smart money.
And number 3?
Team commitment is number 3. And I think that is that you got to commit. Once you decide this is it, you've convinced yourself this is the right thing to do, go do it, and don't keep looking back. Don't keep wondering whether you're doing the right thing.
Fantastic.
I think what you need to do is go for it.
Thank you very much, Dave Epstein, for joining us here today. We really appreciate your being here. And ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us.